The million dollar question here is, well, how many competitors, do I have? Who should I be watching?
Pricing wars is definitely a thing out there. So what are the biggest mistakes when brands reacting to their competitors? Hello and welcome to another episode of the e-commerce coffee break. Imagine this, your biggest competitor drops their prices overnight. By the time you notice and react, you already lost sales and revenue. That's what competing blind looks in e-commerce today. The market moves at fast speed, prices change daily, promotions launch constantly, and yet many brands are still making critical decisions based on outdated reports and gut feeling. So today we're diving into how smart e-commerce teams are solving this by using real-time data to protect margins, move faster, and make better decisions. To break this down, I'm joined by Peter Sheldon. He is the co-founder of Shopvision.ai, a competitive intelligence platform that tracks hundreds of thousands of e-commerce brands and retailers in real time. Before launching Shopvision, Peter held senior roles at Forrester Research and Adobe, where he advised some of the world's largest retailers on e-commerce strategy. Peter, great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Klaus. Great to be here.
So let's jump right into it. How are brands losing money because of bad or delayed pricing decisions?
There's two sides to the equation. On the brand side, brands have a lot of issues with their wholesale distribution partners, their reseller channel, maintaining their MAP policies. There's a constant game of really whack-a-mole, making sure that all of the predominantly online resale channels are adhering to those MAP policies, and it's just a constant game of finding that some of their top selling products are being heavily discounted when they shouldn't be. So I think that's the biggest challenge, and it's really it's not just maintaining the margins and having the challenge of that margin erosion through the channel. It's more around their overall brand perception. If they're a premium brand, they want that to be consistent across the whole ecosystem where they're represented, and finding their top selling products heavily discounted is a major brand issue for the company. So I think that's it on the brand side. And then on the retailer side, you've got to monitor how the same products or similar products that you sell are being sold by your competitors. And if you're overpriced or underpriced, it's going to have either an impact on your sell-through or an impact on your margins.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine from the brand side, that's clear. Normally you have like a minimum price that you can resell. And if you undercut this, then obviously you're already in trouble by contracting. But I want to go into the retailers. Now, there's a lot of moving parts nowadays. You have social channels, you have different marketplaces, you have your own website, and your competitors are on all of these places, which obviously makes it very difficult to track what's happening there. So why is it so difficult to get an overview of what's happening in the market?
It's very difficult, actually. It seems like on the surface it should be an easy problem to solve, but I think like a lot of these things, there's a huge amount of nuances, and a lot of edge cases that actually make it very difficult to solve. So there's two types of retailers. There's a retailer that is competing with other retailers who are selling the identical same products. They all have the same suppliers, they all have the same vendors, and in theory it should be very easy to go to Google Shopping, get a feed, and say this is the universe of everyone else is selling the same product. But that, I think it's the last part of that sentence that's really critical. It's finding the same product. And so when we're, technologies like Shopvision, and there's, many other vendors that play in this space, when we're trying to map a product that I'm selling to a product that a competitor's selling, well, how do we know that it's the exact same product? And historically, we've relied on identifiers, SKU codes, ASINs, GTINs. But the thing is, as we're doing web scraping and we're trying to look across the internet and see, well, who else is selling the same products that I'm selling? A lot of the sellers don't even publish or put on their websites those identifiers. And if they do, sometimes they're not accurate, they're not their call, they're different. And so then we have to fall back to other attributes, the product name, the description, the images, all of the attributes, and it becomes very difficult, especially in apparel where you've got all these different sizes and colors, and you might have what seems on the surface like the identical same product, but it's actually not, because one's a different fabric, or there's two different styles of black. There's a light black and a dark black, and so you get the matching wrong, and all of a sudden you've made the wrong assumptions. And you think, oh gosh, well, my competitor's selling this at 20% less than we are. But that's only that you have to be very, very confident that it's the exact same product. So I think that's the hard part of the problem is what we call the matching problem. And now if you can solve the matching problem and have 100% confidence that you're comparing like for like when you're doing your price analysis, now the job becomes much easier, because now you can see, okay, we're either overpriced or underpriced compared to our competitors in the market.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Now, Obviously, beside of the product, there are other competitor signals out there. Which one should you watch every day?
The million dollar question here is, well, how many competitors, do I have? Who should I be watching? And I think that, the key thing is monitoring the marketplaces. So,
Mhm.
whether you have a direct first party relationship with Amazon or you have a third party relationship where it's sort of an authorized reseller who's selling your products on Amazon, but then, someone else, call it a gray market seller, maybe selling on Amazon as well. And so Amazon is sort of, the first place, and you may often find the same products that you're selling significantly discounted on Amazon. But again, it's sort of like understanding the why. Are all those, Amazon sells both, new and used products. And a lot of the time, sort of understanding the products on Amazon, who are the sellers, and
Mhm.
so forth. So a big part of it is doing that discovery and sort of, finding out, everyone that's selling the same products that you're selling, because it only takes one small, kind of mom and pop shop reseller to, drop the price by 50%. And then Amazon may, drop the price on their product by,
Wow.
to do a price match and sort of, win on the buy button. And so now all of a sudden, if Amazon's selling at 50% less than you are, well, you're not going to get any sales because, so I think, go back to answer your question, monitoring the marketplaces of Amazon, Walmart, eBay, etc. That's sort of job number one. And then it's sort of, really kind of a long tail. You want to sort of, understand who your most sort of top tier, top 10 competitors are, your next 20, and then your long tail. But really you want to have, eyes on the whole game.
hmm Now that seems like a job for AI because there's a lot of data points in there. But I want to, for our listeners that have not worked with market intelligence, I want to get an idea on how it worked in the past. So how did brands track this? Were there spreadsheets or what was the process?
Well, I think you've got different levels of maturity. We see a huge amount of retailers and brands that still really don't do this at all. Their pricing strategy and any price changes that they make to their prices is typically a 6 monthly, even at best process. We talk to companies that are only changing their price once a year, and if they are doing, and a lot of that pricing comes down to margins and map prices they have to adhere to from their suppliers, etc. And if they are doing any sort of competitive benchmarking, they're doing it on a manual basis, on a very infrequent manual basis, where it's a 3 or 4 week exercise for multiple analysts on the team. Sometimes they they outsource that to an agency in the Philippines or something to do it for them. But it's a very sort of literally manual, going through every SKU. I have my list of competitors, trying to going to that competitor site, putting in the SKU number into the search tab, seeing if there's any results, recording that price in a spreadsheet. So a huge amount of the market is still doing it manually, and it's not scalable, it's not reliable. And by the time you've completed the exercise, half the prices have changed already on those competitors. So it's a game of whack-a-mole. Then certainly more sophisticated, larger brands that have sort of the resources have typically relied on vendors that do some level of automation. And so they would create scraping tools and basically say, okay, we're going to go to your competitor's website, we're going to scrape their website, and we're going to look for products that we think are matches. So we're going to match a SKU code to a SKU code. And then we're going to go back, once a day, once a week, whatever the frequency is, and we're going to go and we're going to grab the price. And if the
hmm
price has changed, then we'll create an alert, and it's a decision for the retailer. Do we want to match that price change? Well, here's the problem. That sort of traditional process is very, very fragile. It only requires your competitor to, change the structure in the HTML or JavaScript on their product detail pages, make some kind of, change to their site, and all of a sudden that scraper breaks. And historically, a lot of companies that have used sort of price scraping tools, it's been a very, very fragile process. It breaks half the time, unreliable, and increasingly sort of with the threat of it, well, opportunity and threat of AI, the retailers have become more and more sophisticated in terms of their anti-scraping, sort of bot blocking processes, where it's become harder for vendors to do screen scraping and price scraping.
hmm Now, with Shopvision, you're going a different way. And I want to dive into this now. So, how does AI overall change competitor tracking for e commerce brands?
Yeah, so we've taken a completely agentic approach to this. We don't screen scrape. We send an agentic agent to the website. So effectively, first of all, we use AI to determine who on the internet are selling the same products that you're selling. So we agentically build the universe of who your competitor set are, and then we go to those competitor sites. But we go as an agent, so we're acting as a human being. We're going to that site, we're finding the match, and we're using the intelligence of the agent to not just look at SKU codes and UPC codes and so forth. We're doing image comparison, we're reading all of the technical attributes, we're being 100% sure, or the agent is creating that assertiveness that the product that we're finding on the competitor site is the exact same product that we sell.
Hmm.
And then every day we're going, but we're using the agent to sort of visually look. We're not sort of relying on a scraper to find a div in the HTML. We're sending an agent as if it was a human to the product detail page to visually read the page. And so we're looking for the price. We're understanding if it's in stock, if it's out of stock. And so it becomes a far more reliable and robust process because we're acting as a human would do. We're using the agent's eyeballs, if you like, to visually read the price as opposed to. And so if something changes on the page, it doesn't matter as long as the price is still visually readable. And even if it's not, even if I have to click a button to reveal the price or something like that, the retailers put some kind of mechanism in place to make it harder for bots. Well, if a human can reveal the price, the agent can reveal the price. So it becomes almost the point where we can get competitor pricing all the time on every competitor's website.
Hmm. No, very interesting. And I think speed matters there when it comes to pricing. Can you give me an example of a brand, you don't need to name the brand, where you found out that the better pricing basically protected their margins?
Absolutely. The frequency of detecting your competitors' pricing becomes really, really important. So, like I said, traditionally, firms would do this very infrequently, maybe every 6 months, maybe sort of once a month if they're more mature. But the reality is you want to be doing this daily. And in the case of some of our clients, they actually are doing it 3 or 4 times a day or even hourly, because that's sort of the dynamic nature of the market that they play in. And so, for most of the brands we work with, they're monitoring on a daily basis, and so they can react very, very quickly. If a competitor puts a product on sale and does a site-wide 20% off sale that's running for 4 days, we immediately know that. And not just that the product went on sale, we know that there's a promotion. We get all the emails and social posts and ads from all of your competitors, so we actually know the context of the campaign, of the promotion, of
Hmm.
the offer that's and that it's running for the next 4 days. So now we can say to our client, to the brand, to the retailer, do you want to react to this? We know that these prices have been put on sale for the next 4 days. Is this something that you want to react to or not? And then on the flip side, it might be that yes, your competitors have put these products on sale, but they only have the extra, the XXL and the XL left in stock. Like it's kind of pointless. Like, do you really want to put, your top selling SKUs, the mediums and the smalls and the larges on sale when your competitors don't have those in stock? So it's all about context as well. You can't just blindly follow what the competitors are doing. You have to sort of understand the context of inventory, price, promotions, offers, etc., to make the right reactive decisions to what your competitors have done.
Hmm. That brings me to my next question. Pricing wars is definitely a thing out there. So, what are the biggest mistakes when brands reacting to their competitors?
It's a losing strategy to just blindly follow and to say, hey, because my competitors have dropped the price, that's something that I should do too. You need a very sort of articulated strategy about how you're going to react to competitor pricing. One thing we see more and more is I call it sort of reverse map, but it's effectively the retailers may be following the rules of their suppliers, and they're within the map guidelines and policies of their supplier, but one of their competitors may be quote unquote cheating and violating. And so it's now they're not on unfair territory because they're sticking to the rules, but a competitor isn't. So in this case, they're not going to follow the competitor and lower the price, because then they themselves would be in violation of their agreement with their supplier. But it gives them the power and capability to report that competitor to the supplier and say, hey, this isn't fair. One of my competitors is cheating the system, and they're selling this, top selling SKU on sale when they shouldn't be. So that's an example of, really sort of approaching it from a strategic point of view.
Hmm. I want to dive a little bit into Shopvision itself. Who is working within an organization, within a brand with Shopvision, and how does the day-to-day work look like when you work with the system?
We serve a number of different sort of personas or roles within an e-commerce organization. We work a lot with the digital marketing team. So we empower the digital marketing team with tools to monitor really all of the campaigns that their competitors are running. That's everything from the ads they're running on the ad platforms, paid media, all of the social campaigns that they're running, all of the emails that they're sending, all of the promotions and offers that they're running, etc. So we really empower the marketing teams to be better educated and design better campaigns because they can see both currently what campaigns their competitors are running. They can also see historically and say, oh gosh, last year, for Thanksgiving, this is what all my competitors did. This is the type of promotions they ran. This is when they started their campaigns, etc. So that's one persona. We work very closely with the pricing teams, obviously, as we've been talking about. So the pricing teams, the price strategy teams, giving them benchmarks, price ladder analysis, so that they can be confident that not only they have the right prices set today, but they have the tools in place to be able to react to what their competitors are doing. And then we work very closely with the merchandise and buying teams as well. And that's more from an assortment perspective, giving them insights as to not only the pricing of what your competitors are selling, but the offerings, what categories are they strong in? How does your assortment in terms of, styles and colors and sizes, compare to what they're selling? And that really helps them sort of, making sure that we've got, the right product at the right price at the right time.
Hmm. No, I can totally relate to this. I sold for 7 years myself, and looking what competitors are doing was a huge chunk of my time every day, and it was a bit of a pain in the neck. But obviously, you wanted to do this, so AI is definitely your friend there. Could you share some success stories or case studies of businesses that you worked with, and what kind of results they saw?
We work with a lot of major brands and retailers. And so one of our customers is a company called Herschel. They're in sort of the baggage and luggage space. They're a direct consumer brand. So they, manufacture and, their own products. And, they've seen significant success with the platform really around their Amazon channel. So, they have a first party relationship with Amazon. And again, it's a constant challenge making sure that Amazon are selling their products at the right price point and they're not discounting them below the map. And the reason this happens is a lot of the time that there will be often a sort of gray market seller, someone who's perhaps not an authorized distributor, but has managed to get hold of, Herschel's inventory. And they're selling a one, they may only have a handful of stock, but they've discounted, a bag by 40%. Well, Amazon has very sophisticated price monitoring technology too. And so they will see that, someone else in the market is selling this product. And so they'll lower their price. And then when Amazon lowers their price, well, everyone else follows suit. And so you've got this very quick cascading sort of domino effect where all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, you've gone from your entire channel adhering to your map price and selling it at full price to now everyone's selling it at 40% off. And so what we provide is really sort of the forensics tools to go fix this and allow us to go, allow our client, in this case Herschel, to very quickly go out to their resale channel and sort of, effectively sort of, enforce remedial actions, but especially with Amazon. So I think that's kind of the key thing is that sort of margin protection, and it's really it's bigger than just margin protection. It's overall sort of brand perception in the market. A lot of our clients are full price premium brands, and so it's very, very destructive to the brand to find their products discounted, and they want to act very, very quickly on that.
Yeah, I can see the importance of that. And if you're a brand selling on Amazon, and I think pretty much everyone does, it's so important to be there spot on with your pricing. I think you gave a great example there. So you already said some industries you're working with. Who's your perfect customer?
I think perfect customer for us is a complex customer. It's a customer that sells on many channels. They have their own direct consumer e-commerce website. They have physical brick and mortar. They have if they're a brand, they have a complex distribution resale channel that may include all the Macy's, the Nordstroms, the Amazons of the world, and then a long tail of potentially hundreds or many hundreds of kind of resale partners, and they have very large catalogs. I'd say on the other side, we work with sort of large furniture brands, etc., where the key thing for them is that no one sells their products, but they want to benchmark similar products that their competitors have. So they may have a sofa. No one else sells the identical sofa. They're the only distributor of their sofa. That there may be, 40 other competitors that sell very similar sofas. And what our AI and our technology allows us to do is really find those almost identical products. They have the same attributes, the same fabric, the same dimension, roughly the same cost point. Those are sort of the complex use cases where we thrive.
Okay. Walk me through the typical onboarding process of a new customer. What steps are involved? How long does it take to get up and running?
It's actually really quick because we're monitoring over 100,000 brands and e-commerce websites every day with our platform, and we've been doing that since we sort of incepted almost 2 years ago. We have all the data, so you can actually onboard almost immediately. All of our demos, we're actually showing your brand with your sort of live competitor data. So we actually don't require any integrations. Our whole technology is sending bots to or these agentic agents to both our customers' websites and their competitors' websites. We already have the data, so it's onboarding is actually it's really quick.
Okay, that basically also answers my next question. If there's any kind of homework that a merchant needs to do before they get started.
No, that's it. I mean, really the homework is clicking the onboarding and getting into the system. We've shown all the value, and we actually solve real use cases during our sales cycle, because when we're demoing the product, we're demoing live data from our customers and their competitors. So we can actually sort of show the pain points and solve some of the pricing issues during the sales cycle, which is obviously very powerful.
Yeah, I like that the AI agents takes over the work and you can start immediately. So that's a great onboarding. Now we were talking about pricing all the time. How does your pricing structure work?
Yeah, so our pricing is really a classic, SaaS-based model. We have a flat fee for what we call our marketing competitive intelligence platform, and that gives you access really for sort of the marketing team's use cases of monitoring, all of your competitors' websites, the products that they're selling, the promotions they're running, the emails they're sending, the social posts that they're doing, the ads, etc. And then we have two add-on modules: one for the retailers that we call sort of price intelligence, and we have one for the brands, which we call wholesale intelligence. And those are priced based on basically how many products and how many competitors you want to monitor.
Okay, very interesting. Before our coffee break comes to an end today, Peter, is there anything you want to share with our listeners that we haven't covered yet?
When I'm on a sales call with a prospect, we always have a little sort of, a little giggle, because I always ask them, who's responsible for competitive intelligence at your company, and the answer, always is it's no one's job and it's everyone's job. Outside of the top 5 retailers, very, very rarely do you find that there's a dedicated competitive intelligence team. There's very rarely a head of competitive intelligence. Usually it falls on the marketing team and really everyone from the CEO downwards. And so that's really the mission of our company. Is we want to sort of through our agent and our technology and our AI, we come in as almost a sort of virtual team member who is responsible for competitive intelligence, bringing the insights, bringing the actions, and making sure that our customers effectively, through using our platform, are able to create an in-house competitive intelligence team at a fraction of the cost of what it and at a scale of magnitude that could never be achieved with human-based team.
Mm-hmm. It's surprising to hear that so few companies really use the advantage of pricing, and I think pricing is one of the most complicated things in your whole business.
Having the right products at the right price at the right time is what it's all about. And if you screw up on any of those 3 factors, but especially the pricing, whether it's overpricing or underpricing, you're going to create major problems for yourself.
Yeah, cool. Peter, where can people go and find out more about Shopvision?
Come to our website, Shopvision.ai, and honestly, we really encourage you to book a demo. When we give a demo, like I said, it's not just a sort of cookie cutter demo. We create a completely personalized environment, so we can show you immediately on a quick 30-minute call, how and show you benchmarks and competitive analysis of how your brand is holding up to your competitors, and immediately, even in that first demo, show you things that you probably don't know are happening that are hurting your margins, hurting your brand.
Okay, I will put a link in the show notes as always, then you're just one click away. And I hope a lot of listeners will reach out to you and find out how good their pricing is. Thanks so much for your time today.
Great. Thanks very much, Klaus. Pleasure to be on the show.